My camera. I feel like I'm more clear, by the way. I think we are live now, by the way. Does
Yeah,
my picture look clear? Because I adjusted. I didn't realize I have this here.
it does look clear, but I think it
Yeah.
usually does look clear.
Yeah. Yeah. So Hugo, how you doing this week, mate?
I'm very good, thank you, Sean. I'm not going to go into my massive in-depth review like I did last week. I'm just going to say it was great and pass it straight back to you and ask
I
you how your week was.
It was really good, and I really enjoyed last week's chat. It
Good, me
actually
too.
motivated me this week to really be. I weighed in because I'm not shy about this conversation, this topic. I really like talking about this because it's something that's relative to me. So for those who haven't watched last week, we had a chat about diet and sleep, and it was just a good, well-timed conversation for me just to get my head around what I've been doing. And I weighed in again, and I thought I was going to be like 8 pounds, 9 pounds heavier, still 21 stone, still the same, can't gain weight. it's it's crazy because I feel like I eat well, but there's times where I have maybe a little bit too much to drink, or Nick and myself will have cheese and crackers and wine, on an evening, and that's the butter zone for me. So that was pretty good. But I think with this week was also dominated by the new lockdown. um,
Yeah, of
and
course.
and for us, we had yet another holiday canceled, and I'm I'm getting to the point now where I'm a little bit. I've got a little bit of a headache. I think I mentioned to you earlier today, and I think very much that's stress related now because I'm getting. Both my wife and I were really looking forward to having a break. We haven't had much of a break. We were going to play quite a bit of golf over the last week, and building up to this week, I was getting really annoyed at people, and I was starting to lose my
Oh,
patience
okay.
with people.
That's unlike you.
It is unlike me, and I think what caused me, I guess, what I wanted to vent about, and I wanted to get your take on it was, well, home with the election coming up, and the U.S. is being very different. The U.S. is quite different in how they're handling the COVID. It's pretty much something they're saying isn't a problem, and they're dealing with it with therapeutics. So I don't think anybody believes in the U.S. there's going to be an issue with hospital beds. So they believe they're going to be able to deal with the demand, which may be the case.
Okay.
And here, with this lockdown that we have, so for anybody who's watching who isn't familiar, the UK is going into another lockdown, which includes golf courses. Which that's probably why I'm a bit emotional right now. So with this lockdown, before this came up, Nick and I were talking about this, and we were watching people in Nottingham protest. So I don't know if you saw those protests in Nottingham, and I think there was
I didn't
protests
even know
in
about
London.
them.
So
Okay.
people were staying out past, like, I don't think there's curfew, but we're staying out and partying on the streets late, getting together in large numbers. I think a lot of it centered around university towns. I know this happened in Newcastle not too long ago. And what really frustrates me is I have no problem with people having a view that this is not dangerous. Now, the data doesn't necessarily back that up. But what I have an issue with is if you're going to take that position, and this is what I just wanted to quickly vent about, and I appreciate you allowing me to sort of pontificate here for a
Yeah,
second.
always.
What bothers me is if you have that opinion that, look, I'm going to take that risk on for myself. We shouldn't be locking down because there's a percentage of the population that this is a risk to. Fine, I'm fine with that. But my question is to every single person who went out and protested and got together elbow to elbow, were partying, having a good time, probably bumping uglies after the protest was over. I'm certain. Um, did they decide, okay, we're going to do this, but we're not going to put anyone else at risk? Did they go home? Did they not speak with their parents? Did they not come into contact with anybody in a shop who's going to be coming into contact with their grandparents? Were those people making sure that they weren't risking anybody else? And I don't think the answer is yes to that. And I'm of two minds because part of me wants to say that those people are the reason that we're in this situation with another lockdown. But I had sort of a second thought about this because Germany, France, Spain, they're going to be also going into lockdowns. Ireland's in lockdown.
Yep.
And Germany, if you look at Germany, it's a pretty good example of a country that seems to be high functioning in this whole COVID world that we're living in. And I think there's a massive element of this that we can't stop this second wave. It's just nature. There's an epidemic or sorry, pandemic out there, and we can't stop this. But I think that was sort of my tipping point with people was those people that have an opinion that it's not a problem are are being quite hypocritical in how they behave. You know, they're willing to take the virus on the chin, and I'm happy with that. But they're not necessarily keeping themselves safe or staying away from other people or staying away from people at risk. And that's for me, that's where I get wound up about this whole thing. And I think this week it was just like those things don't normally stress me out, but this week because it impacted my life now, I let it get to me a little bit. It was interesting.
Yeah,
I'm okay now, but it really got to me this week.
yeah. I think I can understand where you're coming from. It's a difficult one because neither of us know for sure what those guys and gals did or didn't do after that. I think the reality is it's probably a wide range of things, from people completely not giving a shit and seeing their parents and family members and shopkeepers without a second thought. And there would be people out there going, look, I'm going to have fun because I feel fine, but I'm going to, I'm living with myself. I'm not going to see my folks. I'm sure there are responsible people in that too. And then you've got probably the vast majority of people mix in the middle, toeing the line a little bit. But, I try and, I'm on your side with this, like ultimately, but I have to think back to the way I was when I was that age and what I would have done. And I would have been out there partying, if I'm being real honest with myself. So I try and be a little bit easier on that because, had this happened at that time, I think I would have been probably quite pig-headed about the situation, just thinking that I'm young enough, I'm strong enough, it's not going to hurt me, I'm fine, without really thinking outside of that, small tunnel view of me. But no, I agree with what you're saying. It's harder to accept when I think we have to just accept it. I think that's where we can kind of move on from it, because it's something that's totally out of our control. And we can't, we can influence it on such a minor scale, but there's so little that we can actually do. You and I'm talking about now. So accepting is a big part of it, but it's disappointing. It's not nice to see people, when you're trying to make an effort, you see other people make an effort, then there are a batch of people just blatantly, flagrantly not caring. It's it is difficult.
I 100% agree with you. I mean, I do vent a bit, and I think I'm just sort of I'm unloading a bit because I haven't really spoken about this. This has been sort of banging around my head. And I think I need to give those younger people more latitude, because I think I would have been in the same position as you. I probably would have been the worst kind of person, where I would have known better. I would have maybe even professed the virtues of social distancing. And then as soon as there was a cute girl who wanted to go out, I would have just totally binned those plans altogether and gone straight out and had a good time. I think when I looked at what's going on in the US with Trump, has been going around doing these massive rallies as well. And it's what I started to think about this week was, okay, those people are saying that it's we want to take whatever risks on, and that's fair. And I just keep thinking about all the people that they interacted with on the way home. They went to the shop and they spoke with a shop worker who has to come in and work in a store, in a supermarket, to make a living. Now, is that person who's gone into the supermarket, are they aware this is somebody who's been to a rally with thousands of people? And then are they not going to see their parents? Are they not going to see their grandparents? And I think when I looked at, I was looking at the data, and I think this is probably where I got a bit wound up. And I was looking at some of the mortality rates of this, and even in the US, it's right now 2.5%. That's a lot of people. And I think over time we get, you're spot on. This is something that is out of our control. And this is something that I think we have first world problems. And this is what I keep trying to remind myself, that I'm in a very privileged position right now. But it's just really hard to keep that perspective. And I find it challenging, because we're not supposed to be stressed out about these sort of things that happen to us, because we're not going to be playing golf 4 times next week. And that was sort of our release. And now that's what I'm complaining about. Now I have to work, and I'm going to have the time off anyway. I'll just have it off in a month. It's not a big deal. I don't dislike my job. I'm very fortunate to be able to get paid and do the thing that I like doing. But at the same time, you feel almost guilty about being stressed out about it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, mate. I think you're being very honest and courageous with that as well, because you could be coming across as someone that's having a bit of a bitch and a moan. If someone were watching this right now, they'd be like, "Oh, what are you complaining about? Blah blah blah, third world problems." And you're right. But I think having gone through your circumstances, and I think no one really knows what it's truly like to be in that position rather than yourself and Nick. Like, only you know what you've been through this year, and difficulty of living away from home, and the work that you've had to go through, and the loss of your dog, and all of these things kind of mount up, don't they? And then you're going into a difficult time of year, when the clocks go back, it gets colder, and you've got just some light at the end of the tunnel for you, which is golf, which is a massive release. It's not just a game for you, it's a fitness thing, it's a social thing, it's a skill thing, it's a escapism. And to have that taken away, it's difficult. And you're having your 5 minutes now, your 10 minutes, whatever it turns out to be, to kind of get it off your chest. And I know you're not the type of person that's you'll kind of walk out the back of that door and just get on with your life and be fine, and be chirpy as normal. But so give yourself that space, mate, and talk about it and get it off your chest, because I can empathize from losing the grappling a few years ago from my injury. And you think, well, yeah, you can still walk, you're still okay, your legs are okay. Well, it was more than just an exercise. It was just a whole thing. Like, it was such a massive part of my life. Like, it was the social side of it, fitness. It was that kind of, my mind was just totally fixated on something that I could get better at, and to have that taken away is difficult. But what else is there anything else that's kind of getting you down about that, mate, or anything in particular that's kind of concerning?
I feel much better now that I've just sort of spoken
You've
about that, aired it out. I just wanted to get that off my chest right away. I think with everything that's going on, this is such a weird time right now, because we've never experienced anything like this, and it's not like we're comparing ourselves. We can't compare ourselves to what happened, let's say, in England, at wartime. We're not being bombed by anything. There's not an asteroid hurtling to Earth, about to end life as we know it. We're relegated to our homes, and some people are, we've experienced it too. The place we used to work is seeing massive redundancies right now.
Yeah,
and it's
really sad.
I think that's shocking. I think to an element, and I don't know how you felt about that when you saw the same things I did. It was almost a bit too close to home.
Yeah, I felt very much like that, because I made the decision in 15, so just over 5.5 years ago now, to leave. And it was a hard decision making that. And I've missed the place ever since. And I love it. And I love the people working there. And I think about them a lot and stay in contact with some of them. And to know that some of them, the longer term, like, in one occasion, Sean, we saw someone that's been there for 44 years, another for 25, and in teams and stuff like that. And to have an industry ravaged, this is, for those that aren't aware, it is the travel industry that we used to work in. And that's one in particular that's been absolutely smashed through all of this. So yeah, just hearts go out to them, and I hope they can pull through it. And I know that there are some people still okay there, and they've had to make those really difficult decisions because of the position they're in and the finances, and they can't get the income at the moment. But I think you're right. Like, it hit hard, because I might not have left there. Like, there was that feeling like, oh God, I'm glad that I did. And then I also feel like guilty for that, and a little bit sorry for the people that were there. But who's to know? And I also believe that in time, we are still beating this COVID thing. You reeled off numbers there of 2.5%. That's not 100%. Yeah. So 97.5% based on the area you were looking at are getting through this. So we will be through. It's just a matter of time, and vaccines and social distance and all these little things will dictate how long, but we are getting through it. It's just, we don't know when. And when we're off the other side of that, this company that we used to work for and many others are going to just return to normal. And it's, can they make it to that line or not? And when I say normal, I think even if the vaccine is out, we're not straight back to work and everyone's okay. There's a recovery that's going to go on, and it's going to last a long time. I think, it could even last the better side of a decade for things to really recover to where they were, because of furlough payments and everything. But
it'll be a Great Depression part 2, really.
Yeah, quite possibly. But these things go in cycles, and I just strongly believe that there's so much learning to come from all of this. Even those that are most most impacted and have lost people as a result. They're still learning off the back of this, and it's down to us to do our best to vent and be sad when we feel that, but also not to wallow in our own pity for weeks and months on end, and to try and find a time and the strength to pick out where the growth comes from this. How can I live a better life because of what we've been through right now, and how do I think differently about things? I'm thinking differently about finances and what I want to do in my life and the time I want to spend with people, and really makes you cherish that time. And I want to be stronger and a better version of myself off the back of this.
I had when I was at I played this morning, for those of you watching this, and you mentioned it, outdoor activities so lockdown is happening. Businesses are closing for all intents and purposes, unless it's an essential business. People aren't allowed to travel, but the UK encouraged outdoor activities. And I found myself having a surprising point of view about this in relation to golf. And it kind of goes back to perspective and what's important. And golf may be important to me, but I'll be fine. I don't need it's such a Mickey Mouse bullshit thing, but I'll be fine. And I was in the pro shop, and there's so many things about golf though that wind me up. And it's some of the members and some of the older guys in there, the people that are most at risk, with this thing. And I have to put it in context somewhat, because for them it's extremely stressful. This is, they don't have jobs that they're necessarily going to. This is sort of what they do all the time. They play golf.
This is their life. Yeah.
And I was just in there doing some, I'm on the committee for this club, and I was just doing some little, bits. I'm not going to go into detail for what I was doing. Just I was, there in the main area, and they were just all just going off on how it's not fair that what data is there? Why are we closing? We're outside. I'm spending more time with people, in my house. If I go out to golf, I'm this far away from people. This is ridiculous. And there's a petition going around within the golf club and all golf clubs to reopen golf. And I actually found myself almost thinking that we shouldn't be opening, because there's so many other, I guess, industries or activity bases similar to golf, which are also closed. And I just thought, why should golf be any different? Why right now all these old guys get together and, they don't care about social distancing. They don't give a shit about it at the golf club. And what about people that are equestrian, events? Why should golf have the privilege of being open and not equestrian centers or anywhere else for that matter? And I just found myself thinking, yeah, I think it needs to be closed. I think everything just needs to be closed. I can't imagine, the government saying, it's no different than if the government said to equestrian centers, who also close, or bowling clubs, you're okay to be open, but everybody else isn't. It's not, they're not going to start nickel and diming every single activity group as to, who should and shouldn't be open. So I found myself thinking, yeah, we should be closed, as much as I hated to think that.
I'm not sure where I stand on it, to be honest. I think you put across a really important point, that you have to look on a like for like basis based on what else is shut and not. I'm still of the opinion I'd prefer either full lockdown or we try and open as much as possible. And it appears that this is closer to a full lockdown, and it's a different situation than last time because we've got the experience under our belt. It's 4 weeks straight off the bat, and we're hopeful that off that basis that should eradicate a lot of the cases if people stick to it. But we still have things like schools that are going ahead, which I understand as well why they're doing that. I mean, it just puts such a drain on society to have kids at home and then parents not working, and then the government picking up the tab and the welfare off the back of it, because I think there's a huge amount of stress from that as well. So back to sport, in isolation, is golf dangerous for the spread of corona? I would say it's on the lesser side. Could it happen? Yeah, most certainly, if people don't respect social distancing. But if it's outside and people are mindful, I don't see why you can't do it mindfully. I think that could quite easily be done. It might be harder to manage and make sure people are doing the right thing out on course, but if you were to take them at their word and be responsible, it would be one of those sports that I'd feel would make total sense. And you don't do no hiring equipment or something like that. It's just people that have their own clubs, and that's normally the case in those membership clubs that you're part of. So Yeah, I would I'd support some of your fellow members there in feeling frustrated because it could be done and done totally safely.
Yeah, I'm frustrated because I was really, really hopeful yesterday before whatever dumpster fire of an announcement there was last night came out that there wasn't going to be golf open. But the more I think about it, it's like, okay, well, you open up the courses. That means you're now contradicting all the rules that you set that are just black and white. So only essential workers in. Okay, well, now you need to start bringing in employees at golf clubs to open up. And golf courses work out of retail
Yeah,
sites. So they're opening their retail then. So now they have the benefit of opening retail and nobody else can. And this is where
it's a fair point.
yeah, and I think from that point of view, I would be I the whole act process of golf is not at all a danger in any way. It's what it takes to open up golf, I think
Yeah,
is
that's fair, Sean.
what yeah, I think that's what they're going to say. They're going to say, look, in all reality, we could open up every golf course in the country and it wouldn't impact numbers, we don't think. But that's not the greater issue. That's not the reason, I don't think. But I thought it brought an interesting point. Did you see anything last night with the announcement or how that came down?
So I didn't even know it was happening, and I spoke to my mate Steve-O, and he said that it looks like it's going to happen today. And I was like, oh, is there one today? So I purposely stayed away from it because I hate even the headlines and the music and everything. What I did is just logged on after and looked at the main points online at my own pace. So then I read through those points. Actually, I did that this morning with Lou. So yeah, I've caught what the headlines were, but I didn't watch any of the announcement itself.
Yeah, it's all been really so even my wife she's the most patient person with being critical of government because she doesn't have the numbers or doesn't understand what the methodologies are, the reasonings behind some of the things they do. And last night was just I think it's getting difficult to trust what's happening in this country in the United Kingdom or in England even with some of the rules and how they're setting them up because I think originally they weren't going to announce anything. They ended up announcing something last night and Boris Johnson said this because there was something that was leaked on the lockdown.
I heard that, yeah.
So because it was leaked, then they're going to have an announcement and they scheduled something for 5. And
Yeah.
Nick and I were hanging out at 5 because we wanted to find out if we were on holiday in a week and a half. Otherwise, we would have just left it. Nothing happened at 5. Nothing happened at 5:30, and then I think eventually, like 6:15, they ended up announcing something, and it was just, I think this. I'm really starting to question how in this country how prepared they are for things like this because it just seems like they're kind of making it up as they go, and there's no real consistency. And when I look at the rules here, this is why I look at the thing with golf and say, you know what, I will accept not golfing because it's a clear, consistent black and white rule, and the government that's in place now, I feel like has just been awful in how they communicate right now. So simplicity, I think, is a good thing in this country.
Yeah, I would
I mean,
agree.
that's just my I just think the simpler we make it, black and white. It's there's always the debate about okay, we are in a family of 4 or a family of 6, and okay, so that means I can go out with this person, but I can't go out with that person. And then you always watch on the news, and somebody says, "Well, what about this one situation in isolation? Why is this one situation in isolation okay? Because I can hang out with more people, but this situation in isolation isn't okay because I can hang out with less people." And I think those sort of questions drive me nuts. And
Yeah, I'm the same.
from a messaging standpoint, I really feel like the people that are in this country who are responsible for the messaging are terrible. They're just so god awful at it because it doesn't take much to say, look, there are going to be inconsistencies, but we're going to have a blanket rule so that we can cover the majority of the instances when these things happen. There are going to be nuances and there's going to be change, and there's going to be people that are going to be hard done by in this, but we have to stick with what's good for the greater good. How are we going to manage the majority of the problem areas, not focus on the 2 to 3% of people that are hard done by? It's just the way it has to be.
Yeah, I can't attest to how good or bad they communicate because I don't watch it or listen to it. But what I could take from that is that the confusion that people come off the back of when I watch stuff like Gogglebox. That's where I actually catch them on news because I watch Gogglebox and it's on there.
I can't get into that show. I've only seen about 10 minutes of it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. You get to know you know, it's like watching friends, watching them react, and their reactions to stuff. You get to know their in jokes and the way they talk, and some of them are just amazingly funny, and some of them shouldn't be on there. But it's just it's a whole mixed bag. But yeah, like, so I see their reaction, and you kind of that for me is a bit of a consensus of the UK, because they'll maybe look at, say, 12 families or couples all watching it, and going back and forth, and you'll see the consistent threads that come through that. It's not speaking for the entire nation, but it gives you a good kind of benchmark of what average people kind of, or the average person is thinking out there. And what comes through off the back of that is people are confused about what should and shouldn't be done. And it's really difficult, because I think for maybe, you know, let's class ourselves in this, or I'll just speak for myself, that, you know, I think you can be more nuanced, and you could say, look, you know, our underlying principle is that we want as many people staying away from each other as possible. Just have that in mind, that is the base principle that we're trying to do. And we want to lock down everything to try and kill this thing off. We understand we can't do that for stuff like police, fire brigade, and NHS, and those emergency services will go forward, but we're going to try and limit everything else aside from schools, because of the welfare. So try and put that to your mind. That's what we're doing. We're not out for anyone. We're just out for trying to look after the greater good. And to that effect, these are some of the things that we're going to put in place. But why? But the reason why comes back to our point. And the downside is there are, you know, for lack of a better word, there are morons out there that won't listen to this stuff, and they need to have like specific, this is what you can, they need to be told to, because they wouldn't have thought about it. You almost got to communicate to the, you know, the lowest common denominator, because you have to give them the opportunity to have fully understood it, otherwise it will come back on them. But I just, the thing that gets me out of this, Sean, is that I just see politicians looking after themselves. Like, look, you know, I'm sure there are people there working really hard to look after the country. I think that'd be false of me to say that. There are people there doing that. But what comes across is that people, and some of the decisions are to try and save their own bacon a bit more than like proper leadership and guiding us through this situation. Like trying to, you know, we can do this. And I don't know. I'm not seeing leadership. I'm not seeing great leadership. And the little bits of communication I've seen, I would agree with you, but I have to put my hands up. I've not seen much.
Yeah. The classic example, there's 2 points on that. And I think even last night, you know, there seems to be a pattern where, you know, government with a backbone would just come out and announce it and just say, this is tough times, so this is what we're doing, and here's what the data tells us to do. The fact that everything leaked beforehand, and it wasn't, I don't believe, this is me, and I can't attest to whether this is factual or not. If you were to ask my opinion, the way they've done every single in government in this country, the way they've announced every single major negative thing, they've leaked it out to the media to sort of soften the blow. And then they've come in after everybody's talked about it and litigated over it. And then they make an announcement. And that's, for me, an example of, you know, a spineless way to announce difficult measures. And then when they announced this, the classic example was, you would have, the example was, okay, so you're limited in how many people you can hang out with indoors. That was the case, I think, after lockdown. And there was a period in time, and this was the classic example, where you could see one person in your house, but then the question would be, well, what about the people that are allowed to go into an office? There's, let's say, 7 or 8 people in an office. Why is it okay for somebody to go to a workplace with 7 or 8 people, but not have one person in their house? And every time I watch, you know, the BBC, and they ask those questions, and I'm fine with them asking the questions. That's part of their job. Ask questions. And now, you know, the politician now has the opportunity to say, great, you've asked a difficult question. This is something a lot of people are going to be wanting to know. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to answer that question. Yes, that is going to happen. We're just trying to limit the number of interactions outside of the workplace. People also have to go to work. So yeah, they're going to be speaking and interacting with more people. We can't shut down every business, but if we limit the number of interactions in the home, we're going to limit the number of opportunities for, you know, in the majority of cases. So yes, it looks like it's contradictory, and I can see why.
And it is. And this is why we're doing it. I totally agree with you, mate. It would be so refreshing to hear that.
And maybe I'm critical because that's sort of my profession, you know, and to a degree you deal with messaging. My job is all about messaging and communication. And that's where if I was an expert in anything in this world, it is messaging. And it just, this is where you start questioning when you give politicians jobs and they're voted, you vote for a politician. And in this country, less, well, you do vote for MPs. You're voting on somebody that campaigns well, who isn't necessarily qualified. And there's times where I wish that some of the politicians, had to have a specific, I guess, skill set on their CV to be able to be a politician, to be able to be a communicator, because they just don't. I think sometimes they make it worse for themselves when they don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I stay away from it altogether as a result. I can't abide the bullshit that goes through, and the lack of courage, a lack of ownership and responsibility, and the, you know, just a bunch of fucking chimps chucking shit at each other type of situation. That it's just all it is. It's like, oh well, you're shit, you're worse than me, and this is what you do wrong, rather than, look, just stand up, take ownership of the right and wrong, because you're a human being. You're going to make mistakes. We all do that. And the approach that you went forward is the approach that, I look for in leadership in general. And it's a shame that the politicians don't do that. But it's a man-made construct, politics. It isn't something that the outside world, outside of humans, kind of acknowledge. Like, lions and zebras, I don't give a shit about politics. It doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't. It's not real. It isn't real. It's a manufactured thing, and I think, unfortunately, with the stuff like social media, it's just got worse, not better. I think people used to respect politics. It used to be something of real respect before, but I think it's gone to a point now where, I'll speak for the UK, but I get a sense that just whoever's a prime minister just gets shit thrown at them. They're not respected. I can't remember the last prime minister that was respected. I think the States is a little different, although Trump has obviously made that slightly. It's changed that a little bit, but yeah. I think there's a lot more respect in general with politicians in other countries, not really here.
Yeah, the U.S. is just an anomaly in itself, and we have the election coming up on Tuesday, and I don't want to see Donald Trump brought back into power simply because, and I was talking to my wife about this. A lot of this contentious war, like us versus them politics, I've never remembered it being like this before Trump was president. And this has been sort of, his techniques have taken off in other parts of the world. And you see it in the UK government a bit, because you have the dissenting side, the minority, labor, and their job is to be critical of conservatives. But I think it gets to a point where you lose a bit of buy-in to the whole process. There's you need somebody to question the leadership, but at a certain point, that they're just going to question it, de facto question it. They're going to say,
no, that's where that's what kind of gets me, mate, is because what you're saying is right, and it bothers me. Their job is to question leadership. No, your job is to help support and run a better country, and to put forward things that are either aligned or not aligned. It doesn't matter. You're there to, it's the job is made to be different. So the incentives are all about trying to tarnish the other person because it's opposing views. It's right and wrong, and it's your way, my way, and it's like, that isn't reality. It doesn't work like that, and we need to compromise. And there are accurate bits on both sides, and there's more than just two sides. There are other ways to look at it, and I'm totally off the whole system. The system is fucked. So I'm out. I'm just not interested. I'm not engaged. I'm not interested. I vote. I do it off lines of paper of comparing policies, and that's it. And it's like, which person do I hate the least, more than likely? Because I never had a stage where I voted for someone because I agree with everything they do. It's never happened, and nor should it. But that's the problem. Politics forces you into that, and that if you are Labour, therefore these are all the things you have to support Europe. You have, well, hang on, can I still be Labour and not be in Europe, or can I be on Conservative and not support X, Y, and Z? And that's how a logical human being should think, and we should be critically thinking and analysing things, not just made to think something because of the team that we're on. So yeah, that just fucking that gets me going, that type of stuff.
Well, I started to really, because I've not paid attention to politics in this country so much. It's more been in the US, and I think part of that is I understand it more. I don't understand. I've lived here since
now, right?
Yeah, 14 years now coming up. It is 14 years. And God, I've been here for a while. And in that period, it's not been something I've because I didn't grow up with it. I don't understand the different political parties, and I think what's going on in America
Right.
has been just headline news every month. But this where I really started to pay attention here was Manchester. Was it about 2 weeks ago? They were going to be going into tier three,
That's right.
and Manchester was saying, "No, no, we don't think this is right." And there was some, negotiation back and forth. They negotiated 60 million. Manchester said, "No, no, that's not good enough. We don't want to go into tier three lockdown." Labor then said, or Boris Johnson or whomever the party in power said, "Fine, you're getting 12 or something like that, and we're not negotiating anymore. You're in lockdown, and we're now going to have to use some national resources to help you lock down because you're not doing shit." And then what ended up happening was I think they ended up giving them the 40 or 60 million that they gave to Liverpool. But when I started looking at it, they were bitching over tier three restrictions. And when I started to look at what tier three restrictions are, they're nothing. They're absolutely nothing. They're just, have you seen what they are? What they were litigating over?
No.
I'm going to pop it on the screen because for me, I don't see why, like even then, I don't even know what the point of these restrictions are because they don't really stop spread. Oh, Jesus. Is that flashing to you?
Yeah, it is. The bottom was, yeah.
Just
The
we'll just
icons.
persist. Yeah. So it's people are prohibited from socializing with anybody they do not live with or have not formed a support bubble with. Okay. So you're prohibited from socializing indoors with people that you're friends with but you don't live with or they're not in your group in any indoor setting, private garden. Okay. So that's not really having an economic impact. Tradespeople can continue to go into household to work. The rule of six applies to outdoor spaces. Uh, Stop being an idiot, Sean. I'm trying to move it on the screen, the wrong screen. Uh, Pubs and bars are only permitted to remain open to operate as restaurants, in which case alcohol can only be served as part of a substantial meal. Schools and universities remain open. Places of worship remain open. Weddings and funerals can go ahead with limited numbers. Rules for exercise classes. So exercise classes can still go ahead. Traveling outside or entering tier three should be avoided. So there's nothing to say you have to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So all this bitching and moaning about whether Manchester should be locked down, that's all about just pubs, just being able to go in and have a pint. That's the only thing on here in tier three restrictions I don't see. Am I seeing this wrong?
So the rule of six continues to apply. So would that mean that more people could, if you're outside of that, you could congregate more than six?
So
Is that
where
what
was
that's
it?
a
So
second point up higher?
oh, sorry. So the rule of six continues to apply to outdoor public spaces such as parks, beaches, public gardens. So that means that you can't congregate, which has always been the case. I thought anyway. You
Okay.
you you can only congregate with up to six people outside.
So if that's the same, tradespeople, that isn't impacted. Weddings and funerals could still go ahead, but it's respect. Yeah, I mean, that's the big one, isn't it? Bars and pubs.
This is tier three. This is the most strict lockdown before the national one has been announced.
Yeah. I think, mate, as well, it might just be the case that you're missing out. It's the fact that they're kind of isolated. It's like that. I'm selecting you. So it's like if you're in Manchester, then you can't do that. And there's that restriction that other people next to, well, they haven't. And why can't our neighbours, the neighbouring cities or towns, they're okay. So I think there might just be that side of it as well. I'm actually glad that we've gone to this. And the little that I read, I believe that there was a call to do this earlier in September and they left it a month and it's got worse. And I would have been happier to go, I think I mentioned actually on last week's show, or maybe 2 weeks ago,
yeah.
I kind of support going into something altogether. Let's all go into it or not really.
Well, I agree with that because I look at this because I didn't really, it didn't affect me. So I didn't look at what tier three meant. And when I look at this now, I'm just like, you know what? This isn't that strict. Like I don't even have
the staying overnight thing, mate, is a factor because I know from my property investing, when we went to our workshop last Friday, our first one, and people from tier three weren't allowed to go. So there's a restriction there. You're not allowed to stop overnight. And this group was saying we're not going to have anyone from tier 3 attending. So there is that like there might be people in that same situation that weren't able to do what they do, like in this case, property investing. I don't know how many other industries that impacts, but I'm sure there are some people legitimately that are held back just because of where they are. But with that being said, I think you're right. The biggest thing that stands out of that would be the pubs and restaurants.
Yeah, I look at this and think that there is such a big to do about this, and it just seems to be like almost like just a minor slap on the wrist. And I know that and I don't necessarily agree that these are the right ways forward. I think looking at this, I'm actually really happy to a certain degree, happy that we're doing a nationalized lockdown that's like actually doing something. Because I look at this and I don't see much in the way of slowing anything down here. I'm not surprised reading this that we're still spreading the virus. I just don't see anything
I hear
that's,
what you're saying.
people are still going to get together in social venues right now, and that's where the worst of it is. But we'll see what happens. It's been a crazy week with this. But by the way, we not to jump subject, but I last week, it's something that's on my mind now. I was meant to share with you the feedback that we had from
Yes.
just to sort of change gears because I'm listening to myself and I sound like a whiny baby. And I thought, you know what better time to take a look at feedback that we've gotten from the public.
Okay.
And it's our number one fan. And it was all about me. You were fine. So you're doing good.
Okay.
So the first one was the lack of a hat was a problem.
The lack
So
of a
I didn't.
hat.
So when we did our, what was it? I think it was Batman. I didn't wear a hat.
And that freaked people out.
If well,
One
this
person.
person it freaked. Yes.
Okay.
So I have the hat on. The other was, and I didn't realize I was doing this the whole time. I was doing this, and he said,
Do
"What?"
you know? I do that. I caught myself doing it, and I thought I've got
Mm.
to stop. I don't know if anyone's caught me doing that, but I do it at times.
Other than that, the show is very well reviewed by
Is that our
the
feedback?
yeah, that's it. That's the whole thing. But the thing was, I was doing this, and he was like mesmerized by the fact that my head stayed perfectly still when I was.
And got
I
this
don't know
thing
if I'm
going
doing it
back.
the same way, but moving around. So, but we've had overwhelmingly positive feedback on the overall nature of the show,
Oh,
specifically
good.
these format shows. So. We're doing a good job of reaching people, all 11 of them, and we are
Yes.
growing. It is worth noting that we are getting more eyes on videos as we start to publish more videos, so more people are joining the conversation, which I'm excited to see.
Excellent. Yeah. Let's hope that we can get someone on as well before we wrap up. That'll be great.
Yeah, well, I think I'm just listening to myself. I wanted to get your thoughts on it, but it's not. I think when people listen to it, it's like, oh, these guys are just whining, and I have been whining a bit. I think it probably is a testament to sort of how I felt this week, and I feel like I'm taking it onto the podcast this week. So apologies for that, mate.
You shouldn't apologize for stuff like that. I think it's easily done. I think we all have to have that time to kind of vent. But I know it's the way I'm kind of built as well a little bit more. I've been told that I'm a bit of a emotionless person at times, but I think you've got to have space to do that. I'm not. You have to be able to express how you
Mm.
feel. And I think at a certain point, we've also every one of us has got to do a better job of going right. You know, there was nothing we can do about that now. Lockdown's
Mm.
happening. Let's get on with it. Actually, not just how can we benefit from it? How can we turn this into an opportunity where we are now stuck indoors? What can I do differently that I haven't done before that I can really maximize and make the most of this situation, which I wouldn't have done without this lockdown, and to try
Yeah.
and see it like that. And I know people might look at that a little bit. I don't know, like it's like a little bit woo woo, or a little bit even American. It's a bit kind of like overly positive, but I can't help but think of things in that way. And I think it's much healthier to get your venting out of the way and then start to refocus on how you can kind of turn it into a positive.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything. I think it's the right way to go about it. I think we're going through this stage where we're just. I think we've been kind of beaten up by this year, and it's hard to put into context some of the things. Some really positive things have happened for us this year, and some of it due to what's going on with lockdown with COVID, which sounds bonkers, but we've had some really good outcomes because of this change in society. It's just a matter of getting through the next few months. I think people are one of the issues. People are burnt out by this whole thing. It's just been constant 24/7 COVID, COVID, COVID on the news, and you just want to go out and go to a bar and have a pint and not worry about wearing a mask or how close you are to somebody or what shit you're breathing in. You just want to go out.
I think that it's highlighted one of the issues with our society is that we're dependent on things like that, that we're not introspective enough. So this is
Yeah.
kind of going on a deeper level. I think that people feel that they need bars and pubs to get through the life, and
Mm.
obviously no one does. Addicts will feel they do, but you really don't. And that having some introspection and having some time where you can go back to a more basics type of living. I think there's huge amounts of strength in that. And I'm not saying people are going to be looking forward to it, but there's a lot that we could get from going into that. Yeah, I'm not convinced that we need all those things. Like socializing, I take that. I think that's
Mm.
a very good point. And it's great to speak to you over the internet like this. It's wonderful, isn't it? But
Yeah.
it isn't the same if we're in person. It's just a different ball game. It's so much better. But the socializing aspect I think is really tough on people, but
Yeah.
yeah, the bars and restaurants I have less kind of compassion for like missing out on that. I feel for the people working at industry, but I think we have plenty of opportunities to kind of enjoy our life and relax and do other things instead of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been looking at I guess I've been looking at how I can improve the time I'm spending here in the house. And um
What have you been thinking?
well,
What's come up?
I've been thinking about not doing anything. I'm not even kidding.
Okay, yeah,
So in the
that's
sense,
important too.
in the sense that I am, and this before I haven't watched Social Dilemma yet. We'll throw that out there, and I haven't seen that interview with the guy from Google
Oh,
as well.
Sean, you're missing out, mate, big time.
I am, and I want to give it its time and attention because by the time Nick and I finish our days and we finish our meal, we then have that decision on what we're going to watch on TV, which isn't ideal necessarily that that's what our evening is. Usually I am doing other things, Nick's doing other things, but if we are sitting down to watch something, we want something that's not challenging. So for instance, last night after we came to the reality that we're not going to be going, doing any sort of relaxing fun stuff in 2 weeks, we've canceled our holiday because we don't want to use our holiday time to sit at home and just hang out. We already did that once this year, but we had an opportunity to watch The Social Dilemma, but that wasn't the right show for this time. And I picked the
Yeah,
right film for the right time last night, and it was correct.
what was it?
Well, I'm trying to think if you, I could
Hot
say
Tub Time
guess.
Machine.
No, 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 but we're in the right realm. So that
Yeah,
was the
yeah,
kind of film we went
some
with.
silliness.
I'll give you 5 guesses. It is so we're in the right area there with that.
Anchorman,
Okay, we're getting closer, but not Anchorman.
Dumb and Dumber.
Yes,
Get in there.
you got it. That was we just were sitting there exasperated, and
It's just the
I s-
tonic.
I just saw that, and it was so good. That is it's got to be one of my top 2 favorite films of all
It's
time.
amazing.
It
Amazing
is.
film.
I was watching it last night. Nick and I were talking about it, about how so I have friends who don't like the film, and I can't comprehend that. I just can't compute. Like it
I'm
just
with
does
you.
not. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But when I was watching some of the stupid humor and how stupid it is, it's actually quite clever how they're stupid
It's
in that.
cleverly, you're right. It's cleverly stupid. Yeah.
And it's just like even there's that scene with Lloyd Christmas daydreaming about seeing uh what's her name? Molly?
I can't
What's her
remember her
name?
name.
Samsonite. I forget her name.
Yeah.
uh but where he's like in his head, he's gotten to Aspen and he's this
Yeah. He's
this
like got
really
leading
sociable
the
guy.
perfect life with her.
He's like, yeah, and it's just like the in his mind, it is exactly like what a 6-year-old would envision
Yeah.
impressing adults with. And Nick was saying, yeah, it's really clever how stupid it is. and it's infantile, but in a very clever way.
It's nuanced stupidity. I agree with that. That's why I love it. It's because I love just stupidness for stupidness' sake. I would still laugh at Jackass because I used to watch that back in the day, and that is, I mean, it's ridiculous. But my mate actually stuck it on maybe a few months back, like maybe several months back now, and I thought, God, I've not watched this since I was whatever, like late teens or something, early 20s or something like that, and. Mate, I was pissing myself. I absolutely loved it. It kind of brought me back, just watching these idiots do stupid things, hurting themselves. I can't help but enjoy that stuff. But Dumb and Dumber, you're right. It's like and Anchorman, I felt was kind of the same when it came out. There was something really clever about it too. It was stupid and ridiculous, but there was something quite clever about it as well. And a number of the scenes are just iconic, just like Dumb and Dumber. But you know what, mate? I want to put something out there because this is related to it. We have just persevered with this series. I'm so glad we've done that. Schitt's Creek, it's called, on Netflix.
I've heard good things about that.
SCHITT. It's like Schitt's Creek. So basically, they're I think they were based in Hollywood. They're an ultra wealthy family, like mega rich. 2 kids and mum and dad. And they get done over by his business partner, and they are broke. They lose everything. But there is one thing they do gain, which was, for a laugh, the guy bought the town of Schitt's Creek because he thought it would be funny to own a town called Schitt's Creek. And actually, that was the only thing he could legitimately own for now. So he takes the family to the town to try and start over. And this town is a kind of backward town, small town America. Totally, you've got these guys wearing, like, the mum is like an ex-movie star, and all the kids are just so spoiled rotten, and they got all the fat flash gear, and they're going into this kind of like, it's not a hillbilly town, but they're just, they're a small town, small kind of ideas and stuff like that. And it's just, there's one character in particular that me and Lou struggled with to watch it. We found him really irritating, and actually the 2 kids are so spoiled that it was bothering me to start with. Like, God, these guys are not. I almost don't care that they're suffering because I'm so irritated how spoiled they are. But I have grown to love both of the kids, and we kind of 3rd or 4th episode it started to like, actually, this is the first 2 was like, it's okay. There are some good parts, but American Pie.
Yeah.
I don't know I can't remember the name of the characters.
Eugene Levy is one of the Eugene Levy.
The dad. He's the wealthy dad. Yeah. So he's one of the straight characters in this program.
Catherine
His wife
O'Hara is
yes.
So she was in
Home Alone.
Home Alone, and
that's the one.
Juice.
So she's just like a crazy ex-actress that she is funny in that as well. But
those are brilliant actors.
Mate, the kids in it are great as well. And so I think, especially in this time when you've got like COVID lockdown coming up and other people feeling a little bit down on their luck, these guys have lost everything of what they had, and they had masses, and they're now living in a motel next to each other, like back-to-back rooms. The door opens and your mum and dad's there. So that's the setup, and they're then just trying to make a life for themselves with all these people, and like it's just a totally different world. But I would encourage you to watch that, because me and Lou we actually watched, I think, about 8 episodes back to back, because we were just like loving it. And there's 6 seasons, I think 13 episodes, so there's quite a lot to get through. If you feel similar to me in the first couple of difficult, we persevered, and we're really enjoying the fruits of that labor now. So yeah, it's good.
We are looking actually for something levitous to right now. We're on Better Call Saul. I think we're like on the 2nd to last season.
Mate, I want to ask you about that, because we watched maybe 2-3 episodes and we haven't didn't break through it.
Stick with it, because the stuff with the guy from Philadelphia, Michael, I think not Mike, the old guy,
the bold one, yeah,
he's a big part of the show.
Okay,
and he is one of my favorite characters in it. And you'll see Gus Fring is a major character coming back, and he was one of the greatest bad guys in any TV show. So Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. So he's a major player in it as well. They have different sidelines.
The thing is, Lou's less patient than me, so she I'll put in the groundwork. Like, I'll watch a couple of crappy episodes if I have people's feedback that I trust and like and respect, that like it's amazing. Just stick with it.
Nick loves
Like
it.
I'll
Nick
go through
loves
that.
it. Yeah, Nick.
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
it. I think Nick likes it a little more than I do.
I was told it was a slow burn, so I
Yeah.
was aware of that. But yeah, it might be something I have to revisit. But sorry, mate, I did cut you off. You were saying
No,
that
it's
you were
okay.
kind of
So
finishing up on
we
that.
need to replace, because we finished Parks and Rec not too long ago, and
Mm.
that was so good.
That's another brilliant. Like just you just lose yourself in that.
I've lost my like I debate, because I still like we'll go back and I'll watch episodes of The American Office. I can watch that like just nonstop 24/7, and this came close to that. And I'll never forget, like I was in tears when I saw the Ron Swanson Pyramid of Success.
Ron Swanson is
And
absolutely amazing.
He's the best character. Ron
Yeah,
Swanson.
he is fantastic.
At the bottom of the pyramid was capitalism, God's way of sorting out the rich from the stupid. So good. So that show. So we are looking for some levity to add, but it's funny that it just goes to show where society's at right now. Because what I was actually going to bring up was less screen time.
Okay, right.
So I
well, you can do that. This so Schitt's Creek is a 20, I think it's 21, 22-minute episodes. They're like Modern Family. So that's what we like about it, because it does actually, there is some it does relate to what you just said. You know, you can watch an episode or two, and then that could be done with your screen time. You've had a bit of light relief and escapism.
But that time is okay for us to watch TV. I find that I'm getting good at not having the device on at night when I go to bed, unless I'm feeling like I need to distract myself from something. But I can't remember the last time I had a shit without looking at my phone.
Oh, really?
I
okay.
I was sitting there. I do even like how I started to think about this a couple weeks ago when we started to talk about this. Where I give myself latitude is, well, no, I'm not going to give myself latitude. When I'm in the shower, I listen to podcasts or, YouTube shows. Like I listen to them because I actually pay the subscription for YouTube so I can have it on in the background with the screen off. So when I'm showering, I have something on in the background. When I'm working, I have something on in the background. When I'm editing our videos, I have something on in the background. When I'm walking the dog, I have something on in the background. When I'm doing the dishes, I have something on in the background. And
very normal, Sean.
It is.
It is. I'm not being sarky with that.
Well, it's part of this podcast thing that we're doing. I'd like to get it to where it's a podcast. I noticed a mental decline in when we first were hanging out, when I was with people socially in an office space. I noticed a mental decline, and I think there was two things that happened. One, I'm working for my own working at home, and I'm by myself quite a lot, and I'm speaking to myself in my head. And when, I'm really good at speaking introspectively. So the words I use in my brain are very good. But then when I try to recreate that out loud, it's not so good. And I think there's an element where I've lost practice into and also not just speaking, but thinking and remembering words. And it does feel like I've got dementia. I don't. But I think part of that is I'm not giving my brain a chance to sort of wander. And I want on this lockdown to spend time to do nothing. So when Nick goes to bed at midnight, I play PlayStation. And I usually have something on in the background. So I'll play PlayStation golf most nights. I'll put on a podcast or a YouTube video in the background. And that's how I spend my quiet time when I'm not editing videos or doing websites for my golf club or whatever. So I want to focus on finding time to just be. And that's my goal. That's what I want to work on is in the evening, do something that's, I don't mind even if it is on a screen to a degree. So if I am doing website stuff, but maybe, having music on in the background, I think is different than having like a podcast on. So something that
I'd agree.
Allow my brain to just wander. Even like working on the website is okay, but just not listen to content all the time.
That I think is key, because there's value in all of that, and I think that there is a time to put music on and to get an estate enhancement from the back of that, whether that's to calm you down, to take you to a different place with a glass of wine, or to get you ramped up for a workout, or whatever it is. Like, music has just so much range that I think people's life is almost they're missing out if they don't have music in it. I kind of believe that there's it can kind of enhance whatever you want to take it. I think that things like podcasts, like, mate, I've listened to the Naval Ravikant was on Tim Ferriss, and another one was on Tim recently, which was I've got it written down, Seth Godin. And mate, I just think we are so fortunate and privileged. We can listen to that stuff for free, and we get these people speaking. I mean, there was just streams of value in it. Like, you just listen to both of those podcasts, you'll be a better human being if you listen to it and you take on one of the things they put forward. And if you try and implement some of it, you'll be better off because of what they've said for free that you get to listen to when you're walking or playing a game or something. It's ridiculous that we get that for free. So we're in such a lucky age, this information age, we can get to pick the brains of some of the brightest people around. However, the point that you made, which I think is crucial, is that because of this information overload and access to games, music, everything online now, TV, that we're not spending time with ourselves. So this thought of pubs and things close, look, we should, I think it's Pascal that said that man's greatest issue is his inability to sit quietly in the room with himself. I've butchered it, but it's largely right. That we just can't sit still and be on our own and be with our thoughts. And if you look at it in the jail system, that is a form of punishment for solitary confinement, is to be with your own thoughts. It's like torturous. I can't be with myself, and I need someone to outlate it. You know, that it's seen as that, but actually, I think human beings need to practice that, some more than others. The more stressed you are, the more time you feel you're lacking, and the less you feel you need meditation and that introspective time is probably the more that you need it. And you know, I know that, you know, there are plenty of other people that get that in other ways for stuff. For example, they'll run without music, and they'll be, you know, go for an hour run outside listening to nature is about as good as meditation as you can get. You know, it's beautiful. But just having that time to digest and be with your thoughts without having someone putting stuff in, which I'm acknowledging is very important. That, you know, there's some amazing information out there. We should get that, but I think we should be spending time as well with, like, purposely turning everything off. It was just, I was smiling when you were explaining that to me, because my therapist picked it up on me when I went in for counseling. When I first went in for, well, I don't know, it might have been psychotherapy. I don't know what it was, like class class, but therapy, I just call it, a counselor. And we were talking about my anxiety and stuff. And she was saying that, like, do you sit with yourself at all? And I just said, no, I kind of put music on. She's like, do you always play music and listen? I was like, it's the first thing I do when I walk in the house. I walk in the house, I put the TV on, or I'll put a radio on, or I'll put something on. It's like, do you ever just like walk in and just not have any, just if you try it? I was like, why would I do that? She was like, so you can just let your thoughts, you know, play out and think and be with yourself. I was like, no. And I was like thinking about it. I was like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable even thinking of that. She's like, would you try? Just, I was like, I don't want to. I was like, I will, but I was like, why does that bother me? I was like, fucking hell, I really rely on other things. And it was just like, got me on the path, because I no one had ever mentioned that to me. I just kind of thought, shit, yeah, I constantly have to have something playing all the time. And like you, I would be doing something and playing something in the back. I'd be like doubling up and tripling up sometimes. But yeah, so I meditate every morning, and it's something that's taken me a long time to get into practice. This year's been my best ever year for it, and I feel so much better as a result of it, especially off the back of some of the anxiety things that I go through. But I learned to love that time with myself. But I still, like you, enjoy listening to podcasts readily and music. I love all of those things.
Yeah, it's whatever is. There's even some channels that have this sort of drama. There was a YouTube channel that I followed that was like a debate channel, and it sort of split
Okay.
up, and one was suing the other, and there was
Oh,
there was this one person, they were both kind of garbage people, but this one person, like I kind of get sucked into these little parallel, I don't know. It's candy for your mind. It's not healthy for you. It doesn't add value, but it just sort of, I don't know, it just sort of fills this void. And this one thing I've been listening to is there's this person who was suing his partner, and they had a disagreement on, how, in our situation it's different than our situation because they didn't know each other very well. They started working well. One person did most of the work, and the other person who showed up just sort of rocked up. And guests on the show were like, "No, I don't like him." So the person initially, they had
Oh,
sort of a
okay.
verbal agreement on, okay, it's a 50-50, and the guy who was doing all the work kicked the other guy off the show. Now, the guy who kicked off the show, I think, is a garbage person. I've this person, he does a lot of debates, but a lot of drama with him, and
Okay.
he ends up winning a lot of these battles. And he's just very sort of, I don't know what the word is. He winds me up, and he just keeps winning, and I kind of listen to root for him to go down. And that's just sort of like, that's the stuff I'm wasting my time listening to. It adds no
Yeah.
value. It's
Yeah.
like it's just like it's like a YouTube soap opera, and I just sort of find myself listening to this person talk and just getting myself wound up rooting for him to go down. And it's such a bad thing. And this is when I started to really pay attention to the content that I'm consuming, because I do listen to good stuff. We listen to some of the same podcasts, and I like listening to certain people talk. I've been listening to a few really good science-based podcasts that I'm learning a bit from. So it was one thing to add those positive podcasts, but it just really highlights that I don't need to add things to fill that void. I just need to
Yeah. So
I need my brain to be able to. I noticed when I was starting to cut things out, I was starting to be more productive in certain areas
yeah.
when my brain had a chance to. This goes back to our vintage reviews, and why I love our vintage reviews is it is a transportation to a period in time where we didn't have to contend with this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think
A
it's
simpler
good.
time.
Yeah, I think it's good that we do have to contend with it because there's a lot of value in what we're getting.
I agree.
But, I also like going back and seeing how people lived in the
Me
'80s,
too.
and that's what I was hoping, when we do let's say, the Murder, She Wrote episode, that is a really good example of just a different time and a different, because that's not like when we watch Baywatch or we watch A-Team, that is fantasy to the nth degree. That's a life that we don't comprehend, whereas, let's say Murder, She Wrote is a bit more of a, dialogue-based sort of funny, not funny, but it's a lighthearted drama. And those sort of I will watch those shows even if they're not that great, because it is watching a time machine, and you remember those times too. And you have to remember what life was like then. How did we meet up before we had mobile phones? How did we, whenever Jessica was in, I'm jumping ahead to our next review, but whenever Jessica was in somebody else's office visiting, let's say a friend, somebody, she would say, "Oh, I'll be over here. So if you need to reach me, I'll be at this office." "Oh, Jessica, there's a phone call for you at somebody else's office." So it's just like taking you back to this time where things were so crazily different. And at that time, people were just doing shit. They were thinking about shit. And we don't think about shit anymore. We get told how to think about shit.
They uh, I couldn't agree more with you. When I take a shit, what I do is take my black folder of notes from my philosophy notes that I
Mm,
work on daily, and I'll read through it, reread it. And I I used to do what you do with the phone, and I think those philosophy notes, what I've gone through, and the course that I'm working on was talking about some of this and the importance of walking and thinking, and that back in the day, again, I'm sorry if I don't know if I've already said this before, Sean, but the Stoics would their academies, uh, like Seneca and Aristotle, they would, when you went to their academies, it was like part gym, part like Harvard or
mm,
Oxbridge. It was intellectually heavy, and then you had to work out as well. It was like
yeah.
a joint thing. And I think it was Aristotle's. I think I'm right in saying that he actually had like a term of the people that walked around with him. and it translates as like the walkers. So he used to teach classes walking, and there's just so much to be said for spending time outside, moving, and then intellectualizing. So whether that's either socializing with someone or just being with your own thoughts, both of them, those are things actually. If you break out what you do and went back to that and just did little walks on your own, or walks with Nicks and stuff like that, and just talking, there's so much value you can get from that. And when you look back at the 80s shows, there's little things like that you get from it. There is little nuggets that kind of, not necessarily the example I'm putting through, but those things that last the test of time, that have been here for humans throughout, and the best thinkers have kind of realized that there's so much value in it.
Yeah.
So I think with our technology and our information overwhelm and Netflix and everything, it's both fantastic and dangerous, and we need to be aware of the advantages and disadvantages and doing what we can. Even knowing it doesn't stop us falling into those traps, but we need to try and realign ourselves with some of those like core values and things that really make us tick, that we were built to do, that humans loved before that time. So yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with everything you're saying about the 80s, and it takes me back there as well, because you see in the fashions and what I was doing when I was watching that, and I think of me as a younger self and all that potential, and there's just something very heartwarming about it.
Yeah, it's technology has moved so fast in the last 10 years, and I think there's going to be a leveling out for the next 10 years. I can't see much changing, in the way that it has since, let's say, 2005. And I think
the smartphone was huge, wasn't it? That was a big, really big one.
Netflix and the content. I think we're going to be spending the next 10 years getting caught up to technology before the next big thing happens. And I think all of this pain that we're going through now, not just with social media, but even politically, it's not a bad, I mean, it sucks. It's shit. And it is bad, but it's not a bad thing per se. It's evolution at the end of the day. People are, we have shit, we learn how to deal with it, we get better at things, and then something else presents itself that we don't know how to deal with. So I'll like, if I could take it back to a golf swing, you fix one part of your golf swing and you break another, and then you have to learn how to fix that part of your golf swing because you've changed a motion. So I used to be really good at hitting a full swing, and then I changed how I hit I was poor at a full swing, and I changed how I moved my body in that. And now when I do my little 3/4 things, well, I don't know how to adapt what I did here to here, and now I got to relearn how to do this. And it's the same thing. We now have this new thing that we're spending time that we don't know how to deal with, and now we're getting good at dealing with this, and now we don't know how to spend time being on our own or spending time with our thoughts,
talking, just being with each other. And
I couldn't believe, I just can't, I feel like, and I don't know that people would necessarily know this, but I feel like with the way things are now, with social media, with the devices at our side, I feel like I have had a mental decline, and I the more I do these activities that are not based in social media and in staring at my phone or watching YouTube videos or consuming podcast content, the more, I guess, the more capable my brain feels like it is. I feel like I'm able to do more things, and I'm starting to remember words more. You just take all this weight off of your brain to work. You're pretty much, it's a muscle that you're not working out.
That's it. You use it or lose it. Yeah, we're there are parts of us that are just atrophying. The things that are dying slowly if we're not using them. That could be physical, mental, memory, whatever it is, like communication skills. We've talked about it. I've kind of suffered from a similar thing. We're talking as well. I try to make more of an effort with it, because now I'm not in an open space office communicating with people daily. So it's not a skill that I'm like utilizing all the time. But I think content creation is a massive side of that, because we can either consume or we can create. And the vast majority of people out there, and even maybe even a chunk of those 11 watching us, are consumers, and that the real quality and value in life is creating and adding value back to the world. And it's just so easy, and I think most of us can fall into that trap of just consuming. I know I do, and that's why it was so important to me to do this, and to be giving back in some way, in some small way, to not really give a shit that there's going to be loads of people watching it or making loads of money, or even the fact there'll be some people that think I'm a bit of a knobhead or won't agree with what I say. But there'll hopefully will be people out there, if I keep trying to be the best version of myself and listening to feedback and putting in the effort, that you will be helping some people out there. And that really is all, all the difference that you can make. That really is where you get so much satisfaction from life. So yeah, I think it's really important what we're doing. Like we're on that road. We've got huge amounts to improve upon with the podcast side of it. I'd agree with that. But mate, we're on it. Like we're doing something, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I think even just to focus on this project, I think we've gotten better at doing this quite substantially. I really love that analogy you gave me when we started. Just a bit for anybody who is sticking around this far into the show. When we started doing this, you gave the analogy of the pottery classes, and one
the
half the
50
pottery
pounds.
class was making as many pieces of art as possible within an hour or 2 hours, and the other group was to make one killer piece. And the people who made the better, who came up with the better, see, this is part of my problem. I used to be quite good at speaking in English. People that came up with a higher quality product were the ones who spent time just creating as many different pieces, trial and error, just going boom, boom, boom. How much stuff can I create? And I definitely can see that. I can see that the more that we do this, the better we become at sort of articulating ourselves and streaming thoughts and speaking, into a microphone to each other sort of digitally, or even if we were in person. It's not easy to sit down. For us, it's I think easier than most, but even then, to be able to keep a running conversation on every week and to switch it up, it's not straightforward necessarily.
No, I don't think so. Look, we're putting ourselves out there, mate. We're putting ourselves out for criticism and for hate, and that stuff's going to come with the good comments. That the bad stuff will come, and we need to celebrate that because we've hit a certain level. If we start getting haters in, but
I have no problem. To be fair, that's something that I secretly look forward to because it's just like it'll really sharpen the senses a bit for us. I think it'll be we now have something to react to. I think it's easier to
well,
have
for me, it
than not.
depends. It depends on what it is. If someone is being really critical and how we can improve and what we're doing wrong, I'm all ears for that. If
Yeah.
it's someone just this guy looks like a bald-headed ginger twat, then it means nothing. I'm just
that's
going to ignore all of that. I'm not going to get into any of that stuff. So
Yeah,
no, I don't look forward to that stuff. But it's the people that genuinely think we can do a better job, and here's how. I'm all ears for that. I think that's the way forward. But I'd be lying if I said I look forward to it.
Yeah, well, this episode is there's some ones that we make that I quite look forward to. I do listen back to them when I do some sort of little edits and pop things out there. This one I'm not so much going to be looking forward to because you go with what's on your mind. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but
no, I agree.
You just have to keep going with it. And this is what I'm going to listen to, and I'm just thinking in hindsight, I'm not too crazy about how I presented myself here. However, I need to.
That's great that you've got that. Yeah, exactly. It's great that you established that you listen to it. You're like, God, actually, I'm not going to bring that energy to this podcast again, or I need to be mindful not to do that, or to vent off air and then, or whatever it is, because I haven't got the answers of how you're going to feel. You'll get that sense yourself. But it's good that you find out, like, rather than just, I'm not going to make today's video, Hugh, because I'm not feeling 100%. No, you went for it. You've got a bit of a headache. You're not feeling great. There's some stuff on your mind. And we do it anyway, and we learn from it. Like that's the way to live life, I think. Like to go through it anyway.
Well, this week I've got a little treat for you. I've made a little video on my own. A little. I'm going to be doing, if you're okay with it. I think maybe every month or maybe every other week. Depends on what the budget looks like in my whiskey consumption. But I'm going to be doing some whiskey reviews. I always debated on doing like just to like have just sort of a fun aside that's going to be littered around, just to kind of keep the lighthearted content going. So I have a review of a bourbon coming out.
Well, you've got my full support, mate. Yeah, I love all that stuff. I think it's important that we just play around with it too, and just see what we like, and then what sticks with the audience as well.
Yeah, just want to keep Bearded Philosophy. I think we're trying to figure out what that brand is, and it's all about. I think right now it's all about discovery for us. We don't really know. I think it's about getting ourselves out there and giving our point of view.
Yeah,
and just be ourselves. I mean, that's why I think the name of it is Bearded. It's just how we are and how we see things, and it's been a fun journey so far. So I'm looking forward to I do look forward to this every week. I didn't,
I do.
I had a headache and I did like I wasn't not going to do it. I was just gonna, we just not gonna do the review this week. That's fine. It's easier for me just to talk than do all the work to get the review up and
Yeah.
get the video going and do all the little bits.
Yeah, I think it's important just to keep that habit down. We can optimize later. Like we'll clean things up, we'll get better, and
Well, we are
we'll when
optimizing
we
it.
understand what's kind of good looks like. But I think I have to acknowledge the fact it's taken me a little bit as well, and I think I'm still finding it. Like of trying to be myself. It's a little weird being in this environment, and sometimes we talk about dick jokes, and other times we're talking about something that are really serious, and it's just like trying to find that space in the voice really, and being comfortable with it, because I just want to be myself. Like ultimately I just don't want to think about the audience. I just want to be hanging out with my mate, speaking honestly, and just not really minding of what the impact might be, whether I offend people or upset people. That's not my intention, but I just want to be authentically me.
I think we are missing dick jokes. I think
we probably need a few more.
I need a few more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent you a message this week about how I was proud of myself because I farted and it showed up on the security camera. I actually have a recording of that too. I'll have to send it to you.
Please do. That'll put a smile over it, because that isn't the first one. You sent me one through a few years ago now, and that made me laugh. That was brilliant.
Magical moment. I'll send that across so you can see that.
It's a huge. I was proud of you. Like it's something like it's like an achievement in it. And I bet when you got that, so when that triggers it, do you get sent the video because there's like a sound by your?
This one was different because I didn't think that the video picked up. I wonder if I can even send this. You know what? I think I could share this on the podcast.
What, now or next week?
I think I can do this right now.
Come on, let's see it.
Let's do it. We've been a bit too highbrow. And I think one of the areas that we probably excel at is this sort of content here.
This is our bread and butter.
Yeah, so let me find it here. But it was so I was out taking stuff out. It was late. I was taking stuff out to the bin, and I forgot the camera was on. And I do get a notification to say that there's been movement. And it was right after I'd done that. And I checked and I thought I didn't necessarily think about that. I forgot that I'd been outside and I looked at the movement later. And I realized after the fact that it had been picked up. Hold on, let me find it here because it was a proud moment in my life. I'm not gonna lie. Oh yeah, I can do this here. Hold on, let me get it set up.
Here we go.
All right. Yeah. Let me just make sure the volume is there. Yep. All right. I'm going to share my screen. I thought, why not just do this on, so that when I want to go into politics or anything like that, this can be brought up.
Exactly. More proof.
Actually, let me separate this video here. Oh, hold on. No, don't ruin it. Let me share it. Sorry, mate.
That's all right.
All right, so
let's see this.
So this is the back garden. So this is me going outside. I'm doing my chores.
Can I see? Where are you? Oh, here we go.
Tell me if you can hear the bin.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going inside. Here it comes. I just because I went back and played it back and I thought, oh wait a minute, didn't I? Because I remember going out and I was like, it was epic too. It hurt. Yeah.
Thing is, Sean, right? Because I've been your mate for a while now. We worked together for a while. Sean has a distinct sound. He's got a brand. Like when Sean farts, like I'm telling you now, I'd put money on this. If you put like 10 sounds of farts and you stuck yours in there, I'd be confident I'd pick yours out. Like you've got a distinct sound and it just makes me smile.
It's kind of goes
actually
back to, God. I was saying this kind of goes back to that, like Nick, my wife gets really tired of it because it just happens quite a bit for me. And like, it just makes me wonder if like I was born in the wrong, like if maybe that skill set, let's say I'm a Premier League player in that regard. And I wonder if like that skill set would have been good in, like at 5000 BC or something like that to scare off animals or whatever. to win a mate. And now
Yeah,
I
like
have
so
it
I'm
in this
used to
time
it.
frame. I'm the just not in the right time period for that skill set.
Oh, no, I know what you mean, mate. I wonder if there was some kind of benefit to doing it back in the day, but you would have
no,
been up there, buddy. You one of the best, one of the all
it's
times.
I could have been good at football, or I could have been, a scientist that, Nobel Prize winning scientist, or I could have been, an Olympic athlete. And instead, this is the skill set that, I've been given. I can do that.
I know.
Yeah.
And mate, have you seen we got a comment?
Oh, have we? I finally caught you again, but I guess towards the end of the show.
I'm glad. I'm glad that she came in after
We
our
missed. Yeah.
last couple of
Oh,
minutes, Veg. That was
yeah.
probably best. Probably
This was
best that you missed this one.
the worst content we've ever created, but it was honest and it was authentic.
And
So,
funny.
we'll be back next week, so I'm sure we'll see you next week. We're gonna we got to figure out timing too. We're gonna be starting at 2:30 Greenwich Mean Time. So that'll be, I don't know. So New York, so it's gonna be probably in, when you're getting up, Veg. So it's 5 hours before. So 9. Yeah, good God, 9:30. This is why I need to stop consuming social media so much, because I can't do simple maths in my head. So, Veg, we're going to be wrapping up. But Hugh, thank you, mate. Really had a good time. Next week we need to figure out what we're doing from a review standpoint. And yeah, we'll have a chat then.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Yeah. Thank you for your time, and good luck this week. We'll no doubt catch up at some point, and yeah, looking forward to next week.
You think I wake up at 9:30 a.m. Egads. See, I don't think enough people use egads enough. I think
Yeah,
that's
that's old school, isn't it?
9:30 a.m. What time do you wake up? I'm waking up. See, in my 40s now, I'm waking up. What time do you wake up, Hugh?
Whenever I don't set an alarm, so sometimes 6:30, sometimes 8:30. Average is probably somewhere in the middle of that.
About 7 to 8 o'clock, 9:30 a.m. So the question mark, exclamation mark is either she's rocking out of bed at 11.
She's earlier than that, I'd say. Veg. I reckon Veg is 7. I reckon she's 7.
9:30 a.m. That's I reckon too. Yeah,
maybe even earlier.
You think? I'm gonna go with 6:30. I'm gonna say 6:30. Is what you said?
Oh, I'm gonna go with 6:31.
6:31. The price.
So I could take it. So I could take everything above that, and then I
The
win.
last thing we need to find out is what time.
Yeah, I mean, we're just holding on now, Veg. We need to know.
Maybe by 11 a.m.
Oh, yes.
She's a night person. She's up late.
She's a night owl.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll catch you next week. And to anybody else watching, thank you so much, Veg. I'm sorry we missed you. And
thanks for checking in.
Yes, thank you for checking in. And don't watch the last 15 minutes of this.
Please don't.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good week.
See you guys.